Mr. Magashule, thank you for joining us here at our ITV studios in Sunny Hill, Sandton. So also welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So I'd like you to briefly tell us more about yourself and how you progressed to become the SG of the ANC.
It's difficult to talk about myself. I always prefer people to talk about me, but I'm sure I can try. I was born in a small town called Paris, township of Tumahole. I was born in 1959 on the 3rd of November. And when I was born, my mother was there and the father. But I'm told my father passed on when I was 3 years old. So all the time I lived with my mother and my grandmother, grandfather. And when the grandfather passed on, I remained with my grandmother. My mother was a domestic worker in Sasolbeek. It's almost 60 kilometers away from Paris. And studied and went to school in Paris. There was only one primary school. And after my standard 6, we call it grade 10 today, we're the last group of class of 76. And it means we're studying in Afrikaans, mathematics, Wiskunde. And that's why during that year, 76, there were these uprisings, not only in Soweto, spread throughout the country. And from my grades 10, I went to a high school, or a senior secondary, because it was from standards, the old grade 9, 10, the old JC, what we call grade 10 that time, standard 8. So there wasn't any other school in that township. After JC, which is grade 10, we had to find our way to go anywhere to do our matric. People will go to as far as Qwaqwa because there were boarding schools in Qwaqwa in the Free State. But because of money, I had to go to the Vaal, Sebokeng, to do my matric. I went to a residential high school in Zone 7 in Sebokeng. That's where I matriculated. From there, I went to the University of Fort Hare. After that, at Fort Hare, I was charged with high treason, an attempt to assassinate Sebe, so-called president of that Siska homeland, or leader of that homeland. But we are found guilty with public violence. And because it was Siska, it was another country in terms of apartheid. We survived because we were in South Africa when the judgment said, because we appealed and we lost the appeal. We were with the likes of Bheki Mlangeni, Fezile Dabi, and the other 22. From there, I went to teach back to the Vaal, where I did my matric. I taught at a high school called Moqhaka High School in Zone 11. That was 1984. In 85, I went to my township, back to the high school or secondary school where I was, where I completed my grade 10. I taught there also for a year in 1985, and that's when I was arrested in November with Section 29, solitary confinement, and kept in solitary for almost 9 months. And people thought I was very far, yet I was closer to home. I was in a cell in Kopis. Okay. That was the most draconian law ever, Internal Security Act, Section 29, very horrible. When you are there in that section, you think of committing suicide. It was not nice. Well, I also did my first year LLB at Wits. I completed, I was doing it whilst on the run.
Wow.
But I completed first year, and that was the end because later on I had to leave the country. Of course, I've worked since the 70s. 79, when COSAS was found, we were very active in COSAS. We were very active in Azaso, university level. We were very active at VETS with the likes of Dalimpofu, Butia Khomsaneke. During those years. I was very much attached and close to Comrade Winnie Mandela. I was almost part of the family. In the underground, I worked with Comrade Winnie, and some of the commanders, trained MK comrades, we worked with in the underground. Some of them are still alive. We are a bit of an organized unit operating in Gauteng as well as Free State. Some of the guys are still alive. I took a lot of guys out of the country. I was instructed to do so, and I left the country, and a lot of people, some of them are mayors today, some of them are leaders who I took out, and they went out for training. They came back. Some of them are still alive. I think I can count about 8, 9 of them who are still alive, who I personally took out. And I was working very close with the likes of Comrade Kresani. And during those years, in and out of Zambia, in the days of the United Democratic Front.
And how old were you at this time?
Sure. I was young, eh? Maybe 16, 17.
16, 17, wow.
Yeah, and then, but obviously in the 80s, I was a little bit older because it was beyond metric, beyond university life. And as I was teaching in the Val, on the 15th of July, which people never talk about, in that small town of Tumahole, by the way, a campaign against black local authorities started in that town. On the 15th of July, the whole country then, from the 15th of July 1984, from Tumahole Paris, it moved to where I was, the Val uprising on the 3rd of September. So from the 3rd of September to Craddock, and that's when the whole country catches fire. The likes of Archbishop Tutu has been in and out of our township. During those days, a lot of in the 80s, after I was released from Section 29, I was all over the country. I was in hiding here in Johannesburg with the likes of Peter Mukaba, one chap, a leader who's still alive, who's now a priest, Deacon Mate, from here, Pretoria, a member from Mkondo Wesizwe, the likes of Rapu Mulekani, who's an ambassador today. As I said, I've worked with Winnie Mandela, the likes of Bonomvola, Paul Mashatile. I had almost 18 places where I was hiding. And the likes of lawyers like today you talk about Murphy Chaskelson. I knew his father. I was staying at Murphy Chaskelson place with a group of us, 5, 6 of us from Tumahole Paris. Murphy Chaskelson had a place in Mayfair. So during the state of emergency, that's the place where we were hiding. I was hiding in Rosettenville, Parktown North and South, Foslo, Tembisa, Soweto, Potchefstroom, Sasol. So we traveled the country during those days. And that's basically the brief history about myself. We were 2 at home. My brother passed on, I think, 97. My mother passed on after taking care of us for all those years, only passed on, I think, 2002.
Okay.
So it was, that is the journey we have traveled. I've worked with many, many leaders who are leaders even today, young and old. I've taught a lot of guys who are leaders. When I was a teacher in the Val, I produced a lot of students who, even in Paris, students who are leaders today, who are activists, who are mayors. In my town where I come from, the mayor of my town was my mayor, was my student.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back after this break and we'll get to know more about you. We'll be back after this short break where we'll hear more about Ace Magashule. Welcome back and thank you for joining us. Joining us in studio is ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. Thank you for joining us, sir. And you were telling us about your journey as you grew up and what you were faced with. Can you tell us more about the students that you were talking about earlier on?
Well, the students are still there. A lot of them, as I say, they are in mayors, councillors, leaders. Some of them are in business. So it has been wonderful. As Kosa said, we must reproduce as many people as possible. And a good teacher is the one who produces people who even become lawyers, become teachers, become medical doctors, become pilots. And it was a great thing. And to have a mother supporting you and a community, wonderful. The likes of Jesse Juarte and many others, Albertina Sisulu, those are the people we have worked with. Soweto, Dr. Motana, Tom Mantata. I can quote a lot of them. Jabu Ngwenya. There are too many, not only here in Gauteng, but throughout various provinces. Cited the premier of Limpopo, then Peter Mugaba because they were close, then Msiza during those years, Dakota Lekwete, many comrades in Northwest, and I've worked with the likes of Popo Molefe and others. And a very person I appreciated also more, of course, was Bayers Naude, very supportive, and Father Mkachwa, the Catholic Church, and the Bayers Naude, excellent person to have worked with, a great Afrikaner who actually was part of this revolution. And that's where you see that the non-racial component of the ANC is important. That's what we want to build, a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, united, prosperous South Africa. But we have not yet reached the prosperity part because it's only in the main white who actually have prosperity. We're still striving towards that goal. of a non-racial, prosperous South Africa.
And in between all of this, how did you manage to keep a family life at the same time?
I was on the run. One thing I forget to mention is as I was running around with some of the guys who were well-trained inside the country, others outside, my son, called Sepiso, was arrested at the age of 4 because when John Foster pounced at the place where I was staying in Yeoville. I'm trying to remember the place in Yeoville, but it was a top-class type of a place, and that time I pretended to be a lawyer. I'll always wear a suit, and they bounced on that, and then they arrested this young boy, my first son, Tsepiso, and they thought I will go and hand myself. I did not do that. And there was a journalist during that time, those years, called Joanne Collin. Joanne Collin made a lot of noise about this matter, and the boy was released after 24 hours. And I never handed myself. And the likes of the Methodist Church, Peter Story, Paul Varane played a very important role, because at times as I was on the run, I will even forget where the son is. And by that time, he's at the preschool at the Methodist Church. So Paul Varane will phone me late in the night, I've forgotten to go and fetch this guy, or send somebody to go and fetch him. So the likes of David Dyson, those are the lawyers. But the most key and important one of the lawyers who have just passed on, Priscilla Jana. I even did some paralegal work at the offices of Priscilla Jana in Commissioner Street, with the likes of Priscilla produced the likes of Richard Spoor. I've worked very close with Richard Spoor, Waters, Jerome Tembu, who is late, and my passion has always been education. And when I became the premier from 2009, I can tell you, we took a lot of students, more than 10,000, to all South African universities. And every year from 2009, or maybe from 2010, we visited every university in South Africa. We had lots of students. When I arrived, we were spending 54 million for student bursaries. And when we ascended with the team, we spent more than 300, 400 million. And we spread our students all over VETS, UCT, University of Free State, all over South Africa. And we visited them without fail. We gave bursaries to black and white. I have numbers in my head of how many students we took to universities every year. From 2010, we had top 100, and black and white South African companies will actually give us money, scholarship, bursaries for them. Black and white will contribute when we needed money for students. And we took out students internationally. I think we are the first province or only province which has taken students in large numbers, 1,432, to Russia, to Turkey, to Cuba, to Belarus, to Bulgaria, to Germany, to India. So all those countries, Portugal, island of Madeira, hotel school, agriculture, and we trained about 14 to 16, if I'm not wrong, 16 pilots who we still have to ensure that they go out and further train, but they are qualified pilots. A lot of them medical doctors today in South Africa. We sent 302 students to Cuba. I ensured that from every township and every town in the Free State, there is a student who go and study in Cuba because it's about prevention, preventative medicine, a comprehensive medical program. So they are back, a lot of them. I think 123 came back in 2018. They are doing their community. This coming year, 2020, there will be full medical doctors in South Africa. 123 of them. The remaining from Cuba are still coming. In Russia, we have more than 200. It was actually 284. More than 200 are doing medicine and veterinary services. And India, it was IT. Belarus, Russia, it was agriculture also. Germany, it was engineering. So 2017, December, elected Secretary General of the ANC. That's where I am presently. And maybe I come in at the right time when things have changed. We have done a lot. And there are things which we have not yet achieved, especially economic freedom. And that's the cry of us today. And that's why we want to remain radical, because the likes of Mandela, Tambo, they have brought political life, freedom in their lifetime. Ours is to ensure that we deliver economic freedom. So it's what we have fought for all the years. And that's why it must happen. The economy must move into the hands of black people, those who have been marginalized in the past. That's my passion. And in whatever I did, I was passionate about radical economic transformation. You can go to my province. People always say there's only allegations of corruption, but I can take you to my township, show you the roads which are paved. I can take you to 23 townships, which we paved, and we spend every year almost 400 million. I can take to the type of schools we've built in the province. I can take you to the farms, which we have actually turned into agri-villages, where there was nothing. But if you go there, there is a comprehensive boarding school for farm areas around Castell and Harrismith. People don't talk about those things. We have built townships, stadia in the townships, where Bloemfontein Celtics is playing in the township. It's a state-of-the-art stadium which we built. We have done a lot of things. When we came in, we built 50 square meter houses, which has not happened in the country. For veterans of our struggle, be it MK or Azapo, Anzangla, veterans or those who work for apartheid in the past, we built more than 100 square meters for them in Bloemfontein. You go to Kwakwa, we have built more than 100 square meter houses for the old people. Everywhere where we have worked, we have actually revived the spirit. And we brought together black and white. I worked very close with black and white farmers, because there's no way you can grow in the Free State and Jikane African Sprat. Because I also studied in Afrikaans until Standard 6. In the Free State, when I'm there, when I'm with farmers, boas, praat Afrikaans. And if I'm in Vrede or Harrismith or Wadden, Nyakoloma. If I'm in Paris and Bloemfontein, Tswana and Sotho. So you can see that we are a united and we are supposed to be a non-racial society. We are not yet, because those who have still have a lot, and I'm sure I want people to share. And I think we will reach a stage of prosperity. It's for us to fight on and ensure that we can't do these things if the ANC is divided.
I'd like to take you up on your word, but for now we're just going to take a short break, and we'll be back after the short break with ANC Secretary General S. Magashule. Welcome back and thank you for joining us. In studio with us at ITV Networks is S. Magashule, the Secretary General of the ANC. So welcome back, and can you tell us, amid all of this that you're going through and amid all that you've gone through in the past and the amazing work that you've been able to accomplish, you've always been the subject of journalistic investigations. What's your feelings about that?
Well, they say once you are a public figure, you're going to get criticized. It depends also whether you push a particular agenda, ideology. Ideologically, I think I'm very clear. I'm a South African. I'm a non-racist. But we come from a legacy of apartheid. We are Africans, but black. Those who have been marginalized during apartheid must be a priority. And that's what I've done throughout my term as leader of the ANC. And maybe that's why people will be critical, because I'm not apologetic about lifting up our people and saying that it can be corruption when it's a black business getting a tender. I always make examples, and I've compiled information of how many white companies benefited when I was premier, because I was not sitting there, but I could also analyze how many were black. But for instance, one white company will get a tender of 1.5 billion or $1 billion to build roads. And a black company might actually get 20 projects. But those 20 projects is 20 million. When you combine them, it's 150 or 200 million. And people say, but this man is the only one getting this. They are not saying that white company is getting 1.5 billion tender is corrupt. When it's black, in most instances, black is associated with corruption, inferiority, and my stance is very clear. That's where we have to focus. If you hear even today, black business, be it Indian, be it so-called colored, be it so-called African, who does business in South Africa? Where are black people? Where are Muslim people in business? Do we black people, do we own land? Do we own property? Do we own, what do we owe? Are we supposed to be workers? No, we can't be workers. We must also be job creators. 50% of South African economy is owned by two families, 50%. And you can go to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which black companies are there. So a black man can't be a worker forever. A black man must actually participate in the mainstream economy of South Africa. We can't be marginalized forever. We are even more educated today. I didn't know I'll be premier one day. I didn't know I'll be MEC. So you then say today I'm capacitated, I have the abilities. Let's give others that platform and a chance. And that's why young people must be groomed, nurtured properly, academically, politically. Consciousness must always be there that this is our past history. That history we can never erase. It is there. It is remaining. And it's for us, first and foremost, black people to unite, work together, and ensure that we all work together as South Africans, black and white, because that's what we have fought for. That's why I joined the struggle, because I wanted to see this non-racial South Africa, as we have said in the Freedom Charter in 1955, that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. But it belongs to all who live in it, and therefore all who live in it must prosper. All who live in it must participate in the economy. All who live in it must have a better life. I don't still feel okay when I see a child not able to go to school, not having food. And it's only, again, during this COVID that you can see hunger. You can see and smell poverty in our townships. There are people who sleep without food. And that's why we appreciate those NGOs who play a role in ensuring, and I wish we can have as many foundations as possible which give people food. And I've seen all over where I've been, whether it's Alm and Dad Foundation and other foundations, they have been doing very great work, even in my township, all over. And we appreciate such foundations, and you can then see Ubuntu spirit. And the Muslims have been there during the years of struggle. And I think wonderful people, wonderful South Africans, all of us. It's for us just to work together. Where there is corruption, I've always said, please act. Because if you see corruption, you don't report it, you're committing crime yourself. So we call upon everybody, and I've opened up. I've said, if I've done anything wrong, please tell me what wrong I've done. Don't pamper stories and write books, and you say, I was never there in the book, I was never there in the struggle. But the book is written by a young man of 20-something years. And he talks about my years of struggle. I've not been there. A person who doesn't know me, you can see that it's the narrative which must actually defocus. And that's why I don't always respond to these things. I know that I'm a politician, I'm a public figure. Criticize me, say whatever you want to say. I hear where there are constructive criticism, I then try by all means to improve, because there's no perfect leader. I still want to see this perfect leader. And one day we'll talk about many, many other things where people are saying there is corruption and all this, and where in some cases where there is clear criminality, we then start to say these people who build stadia and inflated prices, we then come back and say, no, this is not corruption. This is not criminality. We call it what, no, let's fix it. Company A, you must pay back, you must train people. Corruption is corruption. You can't, because it is white, you then want to treat it nice. These people, if we criminalize them, they are going to leave the country. Why? And when it's black, there is corruption. And I'm saying corruption, black and white, we must deal with it. But don't, even now, who gets work from government? Is it not in the main white companies? How do they get work? Through tenders? Like black companies, but there's no noise about them, completely. Let's be fair, let's be transparent, and let's do our work.
In terms of the Zondo Commission, when you talk about corruption, how do you feel about the Zondo Commission and the work that they're doing? Do you fully support the work they are doing?
Remember, Zondo Commission, the ANC National Executive took a decision. And then, so as the governing party, we said the commission is there. We appreciate and welcome the commission. For as long as the commission does its work objectively, without favor, without fear, without being told and instructed what to do, without acting like during the days of apartheid, that commission will be supported. So the commission is there. It has a very respectful judge, Deputy Chief Whip, Chief Justice Zondo. But anybody goes to the commission and say whatever he or likes. And this is where I'm dealing with lawyers here, and the lawyer said, wait, this is a commission, it's not a court of law. So there's a difference between a commission and a court of law. And that's why we say all of us must never again use state organs because in the past we were told that state organs were used, where politicians will say, come and work with me, go and arrest this, and there's no case. And you are hanged out there in the public, you are corrupt, you are corrupt, you are corrupt. The case takes 10 years. You are corrupt, you are cleared. After 10 years, you are cleared. Once you are cleared, nobody talks about it. I know of a lot of people who were charged with corruption and charged with PFMA, charged with MFMA, and when they were cleared, there was nobody. But when they were told that they are corrupt, there were big stories in the media.
And will you cooperate if the Zondo Commission requires you to come in?
I've always cooperated. The Zondo Commission has asked me this and that. I've written to them. I've always cooperated. I'm a South African citizen. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I respect the laws. It is us, the ANC, which came with the laws which fight against corruption. Because without the ANC in parliament, there's no law which can pass. Remember, the law is passed by the majority. And since we took over, even when we had two-thirds majority, we never just pass laws which favor the ANC. We serve the South African public. We serve our communities, black and white. And that's what we must actually continue doing. Build a non-racial, non-sexist, united, prosperous South Africa for all. And this is where in the middle and in the center, the black person.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now and then we'll be back with more questions. Welcome. In 2009, there was an attempt to arrest you by the Scorpions. And now the reports about the Hawks. What are your thoughts about these alleged attempts on you at the moment?
No, there wasn't any attempt to arrest me in 2009. I'm not aware of such. That's why I say news and fake news can fly. There wasn't any attempt to arrest me because I've never done anything.
And what about the alleged attempts from the Hawks at the moment?
Well, you know, as politicians, as leaders, and we have our eyes and ears all over. We know what's happening in this country. And some of the things we come to know. And yeah, maybe it's not that much necessary. I've talked about it. I've said if law enforcement agencies have a case against anybody, we as South Africans, if we have done anything wrong, if we have done something unlawful, illegal, crime, then the law must take its own course. That's my stance. But don't do what we fought against the Scorpion. Arrest people, and it's always black people, if you look at all the time, black people handcuffed, black people, because the superiority and inferiority complex issue is still there. The mental consciousness is still something which we have to deal with. And we are actually just saying, do your work. But don't paint a picture of somebody who is presumed innocent and you actually make sure that that person is guilty in the public eye because you want to politically destroy a person. Don't do that. It is not your work. Your work is respected. Do your legal work. As law enforcement agencies, with simple humility. It has always been my position, my call. I'm sure is that the position of the African National Congress. There's no need for, and I've been listening to some of the legal experts, such as Hoffman, and I think they agree with me that there is presumption of innocence, and therefore, don't pump the story as if somebody is guilty and destroy their lives, and because you want to, in a way, politically deal with people, because maybe me, as a politician, have influenced, because that's the perception, and we come from that history, and it can't just be erased, because it does still happen. And that's why South Africans, we need to unite and make sure that we actually genuinely do work and we fight against corruption. I'm one of those, as part of the African National Congress, who will fight corruption, because the ANC is not corrupt, but probably individuals might be corrupt. But the party of Oliver Tambo, the party which has actually freed South Africans, black and white, cannot and has never been. It has always been the party which really recognizes the fact that we must have a better life for all. It is something we must still achieve.
And what are your thoughts about the calls that have been made for you to step down?
We are in a polarized environment. Some want you to step aside, some want you to stay. And step aside because what we have done, step aside because of our factions, factional battles, step aside because you don't like me, because of the position I'm holding, I'm disturbing you there. So I believe in the issues of integrity. That's what the ANC, and the ANC, when it deals with integrity, doesn't actually talk about the legal part of it. I'm sure we are actually saying leaders must behave in a particular way. And I support it. And I think all of us, but as I said, there's no person who's perfect. If we have weaknesses, we must be criticized, we must be told, we must be set down. And as human beings, round figures, round characters, where we have done wrong, we will change. If it is true that I've done something wrong here, I will change. But don't push fake news because you want to get rid of me. You want to tarnish my image. You want to deal with me because I'm saying this is what the ANC stands for. This is what the ANC is supposed to do. I'm still championing, like never before, this theme of a radical economic transformation, which is, by the way, there isn't any grouping which is supposed to call itself RET. RET, Radical Economic Transformation, is the policy position of the African National Congress. So every member of the ANC embraces a radical economic transformation.
So you spoke about the factions. As the SG, what's your plans going forward to make sure that there's more unity within the ANC?
Unity is not just artificial, it's a process. And I think the top six, led by the president, we talk about it all the time. We talk about renewing the ANC. Sometimes we retreat as top six. We look at ourselves, self-introspection. We criticize each other, one another. We go to the National Working Committee. Who thought after Nasrec we'll still work together as a collective elected? I think we have achieved a lot because people thought come Nasrec, that is the end of the ANC after Nasrec. But we have been holding the fort. We are still holding it. We meet every Monday as top six. I can assure you we are united. Mm-hmm. We have different views on certain things, but we don't differ on policy matters. Because there's no way we can differ on policy matters because those are conference resolutions. Modalities, how we do some of the things, but we always go as a collective. There's no one who has actually gone out and disown the voice of a collective. I think we have been doing great, and I think we'll continue doing so, led by the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa.
And how is the ANC approaching the current national by-elections that will be taking place next month?
We are there on the ground. COVID has disadvantaged us. You know, the ANC is not just a liberation movement, political party which contests elections. We are still a liberation movement in our character. We still worry and care about those who are unemployed, those who have no food, no houses, no work, no jobs, free education. So we are working hard. Our branches are out there, and we want to ensure that we win this 95-94 by-elections. We are calling all our people, those who were oppressed in the past, to unite and come together under the banner of the African National Congress. We shall have to end this respect, because we may have tainted the image of the ANC through our division, through our factions, through our actions and conduct. And our appeal is that for us, for people of South Africa to have confidence in us, let's unite. You, branch member, be a community leader. Don't serve only the interest of membership of ANC with card-carrying members. Serve the community where you stay. And that's what we should do. Let's serve South Africans as the African National Congress.
And next year's local government elections, what's your plans to win over the public?
We are there. We are working hard. We are all over. Come next year, January 8th, I think the president will unveil. And you know that is a call to action. But we have started. We are saying, let's leave no stone unturned. Let's deal with issues of service delivery. That sewerage which is all over the street, let's deal with that sewer spillage. And the people with no water, let's try by all means, let's use the resources of taxpayers of South Africa correctly. And let's make sure that the hungry are catered for. And that's where I think the Muslim community is very strong. They must continue doing that. I always go to the Muslim community during Ramadan, even before, and always they have been very helpful in terms of making and caring for the poor. And we are calling upon all South Africans. There are many people, many NGOs, many individuals who are heroes and heroines, but we never talk about them because they don't appear on TV and radio. They must continue doing their work, assisting us as a collective of South Africa to build a better future.
Lovely. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, Mr. Magashule. Wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
We wish you all the best, you ITV, for the great work you are doing, informing society, South African society. Continue that work, but I know you are not only beaming here in South Africa, you are there in the world. Continue and spread the message of hope to the hopeless, the message of hope to the jobless, the message of hope to those who have lost hope, that one day things will be fine. For the entire globe, we want peace and friendship.